Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this inaugural meeting of the Greater Lincolnshire Combined County Authority Business and Infrastructure Board. Just to let you know that we aren't currently quorate, so we are adjourning the meeting for 15 minutes. Morning, everybody. We are reconvening this inaugural meeting of the Greater Lincolnshire Combined County Authority Business and Infrastructure Board. I do apologise for the fact that we're making a late start for the meeting, but we were awaiting the arrival of the Mayor, who is now present. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. We're not reconvening any meeting. The meeting did not start at 10:15 because we were not quorate. You then said to the viewing people that we would open and adjourn the meeting for 15 minutes, which we did. The Mayor still wasn't here, and so we still weren't quorate. So this meeting is not being run in accordance with the Constitution. The Constitution is clear that if after 15 minutes, after the published start time, the meeting is not quorate, then no meeting shall take place. Therefore, any decisions that we choose to take today will not be in accordance with the Constitution and possibly ultra vires illegal, whichever you choose to say. So I want to make it clear, I don't want to be the awkward one from the start, but rules are rules. We've put a lot of work into creating this constitution. We shouldn't just be ignoring it because somebody's train has been delayed. And I would say, I've managed to make it from Market Deeping today using the rail network. I didn't have any problems at all.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. I hear what you say. As chair, I was put in an invidious position. We have all convened this morning here up in Grimsby, and I thank members and officers for being at the meeting here this morning. And I did take advice from the monitoring officer. I think it is reasonable for us to continue with the meeting, and therefore that is my intention. But I'm not taking any further debate. As chair, I'm ruling that the meeting will now commence. So I thank you for your views, Councillor Baxter. Of course, they're on record.
That's fine, Chair, as long as they are on record.
They are indeed, because of course I will remind members, of course, that we are now live streaming. So the public could well be listening to and watching this meeting. Can I just ask members to make sure that you activate your microphone before you speak, otherwise the public out there won't be able to hear what you're saying. And if you want to contribute to the debate on any particular item, can you make sure you raise your hand so that I can recognise you and bring you in. I think it might just be a good idea for members of the public if we were just to run round the table so that they know who's here at the meeting today. So perhaps if we could start with Mayor Dame Jenkins. Don't forget your microphone, please.
Thank you, Chair. And as I said at the beginning, I apologise that the train from London was late. So I'm Andrea. I'm the Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Anne Dorian. I'm the leader of Boston Borough Council.
Good morning, I'm Ashley Baxter. I'm the leader of South Kesteven District Council.
Morning, my name is Sean Matthews. I'm the leader of Lincolnshire County Council.
Good morning, my name is Liam Kelly and I am the Executive Councillor for Growth and Veterans Affairs for Lincolnshire County Council.
Morning, Richard Wright, leader at North Kesteven District Council.
Good morning, Craig Leyland, leader of East Lindsey District Council.
Good morning, Rob Waltham, leader of North Lincolnshire Council.
Good morning, Neil Poole, deputy leader of North Lincolnshire Council.
Neil Joster, representing the Economic Advisory Panel.
I'm Councillor Philip Jackson, the leader of North East Lincolnshire Council and chair of the meeting.
I'm Councillor Stan Shreve, deputy leader of North East Lincolnshire Council.
Thank you very much for that. Right, so can I just ask, first of all, do we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chairman. We have apologies from Councillor Sheard and we have Councillor Kelly replacing Councillor Sheard for this meeting only.
Thank you very much. Item 2 on the agenda, do we have any declarations of interest on any items on today's agenda, please?
Chairman, I'd like to ask a question, please. We've just received around the table a form to fill in regards DPIs, and I know it was sent out last night actually to cross members. Could I ask what code of conduct you've adopted? So I haven't been circulated as a new person to this board. I haven't received a copy of that to know would I expect to sign up to what code of conduct you're using, because it's important that we know what legislation we have to conform with. But more importantly, what concerns me is the meeting you had on the 4th of June. Nobody had made any DPIs because you hadn't circulated the information. And in fact, there's clear, strict rules again regards DPIs and declarations of 30 days from the time that you know you're sitting on that body. So I would like clarification, please, from the monitor officer and the legal team of where that meeting stood on the 4th of June regarding those members in attendance not knowingly filling those declarations in or having a code of conduct effectively to sign up to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Poole. Can I ask the monitoring officer, please, to clarify the situation?
Thank you, Chair. The Code of Conduct for the Combined Authority is contained within the Constitution that was agreed at the inaugural meeting and then amended at the AGM. In terms of the DPIs, we're aware there has been a delay in circulating those, and they should have been done at the induction, and it's something that we are working on correcting.
Thank you, monitoring officer. Right, moving on then to item 3, just a few comments from me as chair. As I mentioned earlier, this is the first meeting of one of the 3 boards of the Greater Lincolnshire Combined County Authority. This is the Business and Infrastructure Board. Clearly, developing businesses and improving the infrastructure of Greater Lincolnshire are key aspects of moving the county forward. Key aspects of the devolution deal that we agreed with government, and it's good that we're here this morning for the first business and infrastructure board looking at some of these key issues. So I look forward to the contributions that members will be making during the meeting this morning. And could I just say perhaps a belated welcome to Grimsby and to this beautiful and historic town hall. You're all very welcome here. Moving on then to item 4 on the agenda, the business strategy. We have a report from the interim chief operating officer updating the board on existing frameworks relating to infrastructure for Greater Lincolnshire and national emerging priorities from the government's national 10-year infrastructure strategy. So I'm going to hand over to the interim chief operating officer just to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chairman. So as you've seen from the report in your pack, we are not starting from zero in terms of the combined authorities evidence base, and we intend to build on the previous decisions that leaders across Greater Lincolnshire have made in terms of infrastructure priorities, in terms of evidence bases that the LEP maintained and have been constructed in partnership across the authorities in Greater Lincolnshire. As you've highlighted, the government is bringing forward a whole raft of new strategies, industrial strategies and infrastructure strategies, etc., that the combined authority needs to be well placed to respond to. The evidence base that we're working to puts us in a strong position to be able to do just that. Intention is to now pass to Helena Davies, and she will take you through the report in more detail, and then we'll be happy to take any questions or comments you may have.
Thank you, Lee. So, as explained in the paper, in July 2023, Greater Lincolnshire and Rutland, as it was at the time under the LEP, worked on a strategic infrastructure delivery framework, otherwise known as a SIDIF. So I'll use that abbreviation for ease as I'm talking through the report. This had involvement from all of the local authorities in the area across Greater Lincolnshire and Rutland, and was developed in collaboration and with lots and lots of partnership working. The existing framework provides a really excellent starting point for the development of our infrastructure plan within the combined authority. However, it's been, as Lee explained, far too early to develop the plan in advance of today, understanding that our national infrastructure priorities have only just been announced, and also not having agreed the corporate plan fully with regards to the combined authority. The key aims of the CIDIF were quite broad, looking at inclusive economic growth, looking at health outcomes, looking at higher skilled and better jobs for residents, clean energy transition, increased productivity and global competitiveness, and increased R&D and innovation. And I'm sure you'll agree that it's fair to say that the core aims reflected in the CIDIF remain very relevant for the authority in our prioritisation considerations. However, it would be really important to ensure that current evidence-led decisions are taken when it comes to broad infrastructure remit of the authority. The CIDIF focused on 7 priority sectors, and although for the infrastructure plan there will be a need for a slight adjustment of these, we understand that the focus will need to be looked at in the context of the devolution deal, recognise the need to be strategic, and also, where possible, provide wider added value by relating to more than one geographical location. The plan will highlight the additionality that the authority aims to bring to infrastructure development over the next 5 years, and it's our aim to evolve it over the summer and into the autumn, demonstrating what the authority is looking to invest in, being very clear on their priorities and the transformational impact that this plan is likely to deliver. So in the context of the industrial strategy and the infrastructure strategy now having been released by government, in order to align with the government's 10-year UK infrastructure strategy, we will do a number of things. We will be very clear on our approach to driving infrastructure growth. We'll consider how we encourage private investment. We will explore the cross-regional aspects and opportunities available to us, and we will also identify our focus when it comes to energy. So I'm asking the board today to consider 3 elements. So to note the previous infrastructure planning progress that has already been made to a great extent across Greater Lincolnshire. To endorse the development of a Merrill Combined Authority infrastructure plan, building on existing evidence, policy and frameworks. And finally, to support the approach and timescales highlighted within this report, providing direction on how it would like to see activity evolving and how it would like to monitor the progress made. And I'm happy to take any questions at this point.
Thank you very much for that summary. And it is well worth noting, of course, that a lot of work had been done by the Greater Lincolnshire LEP previously, and I thank the LEP for the work they did on that. And they're able to present us with the strategic infrastructure delivery framework this morning. Of course, it was prepared back in 2023. So members may notice that there have been a few developments since then. So I've had a couple of members already indicate wanting to come in. Councillor Leyland first.
Thank you, Chair. Just in relation to the report, fully understand that this has been done over a period of time, but I think there's some things that need to be really focused on because of their changing nature and the impact they have on all the other things that they impact through. And that is water management across Lincolnshire. And certainly there are a number of coastal authorities that are sitting around this table with concern about the state of the flood defences, both fluvial and sea defence, which are critical in making sure that we can then develop behind those flood defences. So I think if we can have a pointer on making sure we understand the current position of those flood defences and the future necessity of investment and a very long-term investment, I might add, in terms of cost and planning to do so. So I think that should be noted that this is an area we need to focus on. Chair, thank you.
Thank you. We'll make sure that's noted. The next speaker is Councillor Waltham, you indicated next, and then we'll bring the Mayor in.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think there's a couple of things that are really helpful in the report as it starts to frame how we'll transact business going forward. Clearly, last night we all got in our inbox this report from Johnny Reynolds that said the industrial strategy and the strands for the sector growth there. I think there's a lot we need to overlap with them, to be honest. Otherwise, we're not going to get funding if we don't fit in to their core priorities. And just to reinforce the point that Councillor Leyland made around, you know, actually our coastline is under threat significantly, and we don't have a strand around culture and tourism, which is something that as the industry enables us to be able to protect our coastline. So I think we certainly need to be considering that. I think certainly one of the national priority areas is defence, which I think anybody who think Bomber County would have still has a strategic defence opportunities. That's something we desperately need to connect with. I think other than that, I think we've got traditional industries that we desperately need to protect, and probably since 2023 the steel industry has probably become more challenged than it ever has as a sector, and you might suggest that that might come under energy, or you might say it's environment if you're really pushing it. But the challenge is we've got to be able to sustain some of our traditional sectors, and I think that's something we need to be able to cite specifically, because the 2023 plan didn't mention protecting, you know, significant industry bases, and I think, you know, steel has got to be a critical part of that. But I would say that wouldn't I? So maybe a frame around advanced manufacturing I think would be really helpful. It's something we've already done in terms of funding capacity in that space. But so I think we do really need to examine the focus of some of these areas, and I think particularly in light of what the government have just put out, but certainly a focus on advanced manufacturing, defence and culture and tourism I think is important for us.
Thank you, Councillor Waltham. Can I bring Dame Jenkins in?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to really reassure Councillor Leyland and Councillor Waltham, actually. Firstly, on Councillor Leyland's point about water management, I have already been speaking to the team about setting up an advisory board on water management, getting the key players there from across the county, including people from national government, because it is of significant importance. So please rest assured this is a priority. Regarding Councillor Waltham, I agree, industrial strategy that only ended up in our inbox this week. I already sort of mentioned defence, etc., to the Minister, and our Chief Exec and I. We had several meetings in London yesterday where we mentioned steel, the importance of British steel. We mentioned advanced manufacturing and also defence as well. So these are key priorities for myself as Mayor. So please realise we're on the same page with this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dorian.
Thank you, Chair. It was reassuring to hear Andrea confirm what Craig and Rob have just mentioned. I think that's really important. I'd like just to move the discussion a little bit around what Helena has asked us to look at under point 3. I'd like to know, Helena, do you have a full-time officer, project manager that's going to take this work forward? And also, by way of keeping us involved as the plan progresses, would it be a good idea, rather than wait till the autumn and drop the draft plan on the board, could we have perhaps a monthly Teams meeting where you update the board and just to, you know, keep things moving along in that way? Through you, Chair. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Do officers want to respond to that?
So really good points and questions. So organisation's got an interim structure at the moment. Within that structure is project management capacity. So we're allocating that out over a range of things. Clearly, as the organisation starts to develop its longer term plans, we'll review that interim structure and then ensure the appropriate allocation of resource against each area. We recognise that the organisation is building. It is new. It is a number of weeks old, isn't it, at the moment? And as part of that build, we'll be introducing a series of briefing cycles to make sure that all members of the boards are appraised of the business of the organisation. So the intention is to introduce that cycle for you.
Thank you. Can I just get assurance from officers that you're taking note of the points that members are making this morning to incorporate amendments into this document in due course? Right, thank you. I've got several other members who've indicated to speak, so I'll take them in the order they've indicated. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 4 comments. I'll spill them out all at once if you like. First of all, in paragraph 5 about timescales, this national 10-year infrastructure. That's a 5 in the swear box. National 10-year infrastructure strategy. Is that what Councillor Waltham was talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's still June, and that's yeah. I haven't read that yet. If it arrived last night. Secondly, the next steps talk about the flight path for this strategy, and first of all, it mentions ensuring that the scheme has full political support. I think that's ambitious for virtually anything from parish council up to United Nations to get full political support, but I appreciate the aspiration. More importantly, perhaps, is the engagement, because we are going to be presented with another iteration of this plan or first draft plan in the autumn running, I guess, from beginning of September to the end of November. So we're going to have engagement on that plan. What does engagement look like? Who are we engaging with? And is it just a gazebo in the marketplace, or is it something more complicated? And how will that be fed back in, especially when there will at the same time in Lincolnshire be at least one and possibly multiple engagement exercises on the local government reorganisation plans, which leads me into my final point about this plan that we've been given, the Greater Lincolnshire and Rutland Strategic Infrastructure Development Framework. I want to ask about Rutland. Plenty of people in South Kesteven live very close to Rutland. It's an area that's got a lot in common with us, and I think it's a question for the mayor about the future of Rutland. Currently, they're mayorless. They are in search of a devolved authority. I'd like to ask: are we a friend to Rutland, or do we perceive that Rutland is in Leicestershire?
Right, thank you for those points. All good points. I wonder if I could just ask officers to clarify the situation about the potential of the amended draft document that we're talking about, and also just exactly where we stand from a legal viewpoint with regard to Rutland.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of taking the point regarding engagement, as always, we would want to engage with partners, local authorities involved and working with the authority. We would also need to involve other stakeholders as well. So crucially, taking the example of the water partnership, we will want to work with key water providers, key IDBs, making sure that the local authority representatives are also involved in those discussions. So it depends, it will be done in different ways, but just to reassure you, there will be engagement on this document, because there has to be, because it's such a broad area. Just hand over to Lee to answer the other question.
So clearly what we're doing is bringing forward an evidence base that was produced under the LEP, which, as you're aware, covered Rutland as well as Greater Lincolnshire. So the boundary is different, isn't it? We are seeking to bring the appropriate parts of that into the policy of the organisation. Now, recognising LGR is in the backdrop, the combined authority will work with its members. Those members change in time. The combined authority will update its membership. But as Helena has said, you are key players within that dialogue, but there are also wider partners within the system that we need to work with. In terms of positions for where Rutland should be, that is a political conversation to take place. I'm happy for the mayor to give her views on that, but we will engage with our membership, which is a Greater Lincolnshire footprint.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to ask the mayor to come in on that one before I bring other speakers in who indicated they would like to speak.
I mean, I've got a few bits to come on the previous points, if that's okay, Chair, as well as that. Yes, thank you. I mean, regarding Rutland, look, I'm a friend to Rutland. I'm a friend to neighbouring mayoralties. You know, this is about working, you know, cross borders as well. And yes, I agree. There's a political decision we need to have on that. And on your point, really, about transparency, you know, I was elected on a platform of having transparency. I think that's important. And this is why I've said I want even committee meetings to be broadcast and votes to be noted. So I think that's very important that everything gets scrutinised. And also regarding the point of that report, I think it was right that we use this existing LEP report because we don't want to delay things. You know, we want to crack on for the people of Greater Lincolnshire. And yes, we're going to have to manoeuvre around, have addendums onto the report, etc. And there will be scrutiny from all the stakeholders here, which is quite rightly so, and there'll also be time for feedback as well. Now, I'd like to refer to some previous points which I didn't cover actually with Councillor Leyland, the culture and tourism aspect. That we've seen that tourism has now come under the combined authority, and so our chief exec and I yesterday was actually even meeting with a company to get ideas on even using AI on how we can report and how we can actually promote our great county and all its jewels in the crown. So it will be a priority of me as mayor. And yeah, I think that's it actually, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chairman. And on the last point from the Mayor, I'm glad to hear that on tourism, when you consider that tourism, even for my district, is worth over £220 million a year. It's an important part of the economy. So I'm very pleased to hear that. There's certain parts of the document where, I mean, I'm not going to go into it all, so just there's a couple of key issues I want to discuss. And that was, I admire the logic in sort of marrying housing now with infrastructure. They're two sides of the same coin, and where they need to be coordinated, they go hand in hand. And there's an offer actually on the table now from the Planning Advisory Service, if you've not heard from it yet, with regards to spatial infrastructure delivery plans. They're working on them, so they'll be very pleased to talk to us. But I was interested already in the document, but now from what Mayor Andrea said as well about getting people together. We've got a so-called National 10-Year Infrastructure Strategy that's partly based on the Planning and Infrastructure Bill that's now making its way through to the Lords. That's massively flawed and doesn't compel certain things to happen, including builders build houses, which we can come to on the next paper. But within that, there's been some lobbying for amendments, and one of those is quite important with regards to infrastructure, and that's the fact that we've now got companies such as water companies that are privately owned that actually deal with the needs of their shareholders rather than the needs of the communities they're serving. And we've now got at least one water company that's now objecting to development. They're now blocking development, despite the fact that they've been given every opportunity to look where the infrastructure and development needs of the county or districts are. And they've been invited to marry up their business plans and they never do. And it's a ridiculous situation where we could now be looking at how do we inform the infrastructure requirements and the housing and all other development for the county. And then we have private companies that can actually block that because there's no way to compel them. So if there's any time for this authority to still lobby key people in the Lords to get that amendment through, but we're saying that water companies especially should be made at the local plan stage to marry their plans to ours.
Yes, thank you. Before I bring the Mayor in, can I just add that from a North East Lincolnshire viewpoint, we're in a position now where we are struggling to get some industrial developments moving forward because of actually shortage of water. So whereas in certain parts of Lincolnshire we're worried about flooding, in North East Lincolnshire and along the South Humber Bank we're actually concerned about shortage of water for industries that have heavy water demand. So again, can we ensure that that is included as an amendment to this draft document? I'll bring the Mayor in and then other members who indicated to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. First of all, on your point, that this was the whole part of me setting up this working group because of water management, and I am conscious, especially in the north and northeast of the county, that we have these issues. So we will be looking at this. And to yourself, Councillor Wright, I completely agree with you. And you know, we shouldn't have them dictating to the stakeholders. It's about the community. So we're going to be meeting anyway shortly. Let's discuss this further and let's have an action plan on pushing back at central government, because I'll certainly happily take that up.
Thank you very much. I'll bring Councillor Shreve in now.
Thank you, Chair. conscious that this is being streamed and people will be viewing this, I'd just like to make a couple of points about the paper and the appendix. Paper, first of all, I'm going to repeat the key aims so that people viewing can see what we're talking about. The key aims of the plan are inclusive economic growth, improved health outcomes and quality of life, very close to my heart, access to higher skills and better jobs, accelerated clean energy transition, increased productivity and global competitiveness, and increased R&D and innovation. And that translates into a number of priority sectors, many of which are cross-cutting all of those aims. And again, for those viewing, that is agri-food, energy, ports and logistics, defence and security, health and care, visitor economy, and advanced manufacturing for chemicals. That's the bones of the paper that we've received, and I totally agree with all of that. In terms of the appendix, it's a 2023 document. It's an excellent document, but let's forget it was part of the pitch for Greater Lincolnshire. So it's a very lengthy document, and it provides an enormous amount of context and not an enormous amount of outcomes. So in moving forward, what I would suggest is a lot of really good points have been made this morning by members. And I'm not going to add to that because I think they've all been excellent. So I think we need to consider, one, that the document does provide context, but in a much more focused way. Two, it doesn't become an encyclopedia Britannica, so we don't need a 100-page document. And three, that we have, in all the cross-cutting themes, clear outcomes to achieve, because then we know on a strategic level what we're asking our officers and our employees to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shreve. I think you probably very succinctly set out what we would perhaps want to agree as part of recommendation 3, assuming that all members are on board with the points you've made, Councillor Shreve. Let me now bring in Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chairman. And I'm just reinforcing some of the points that have been made. But as this is a strategic initiative, I've gone through the documents, so I don't see much there in regards to involvement of the external stakeholders. And obviously, the external stakeholders, such as the utility companies, are fundamental in the success of this going forward. And those external stakeholders are key. The constraints that they face, will impact on, what we're able to achieve. So, are we able to provide the assurances or working forward that we will work in tandem with them so that our strategy, as it is at present, can be shaped accordingly if unsuccessful, if the lobbying is unsuccessful and it's all based on the commercial viability and the revenue, etc., that's going to be generated by these utility companies, so that we're able to optimise the growth in Lincolnshire, because ultimately they're external stakeholders, interested parties, and we have to work together in order for there to be mutual benefit, and it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good point. I'll bring the mayor in on that one.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Completely agree. And this is why it was sort of my manifesto commitment actually to set up a Greater Lincolnshire Business Association. I'm very conscious that we must engage with all stakeholders, right from SMEs, right from water companies, as you're saying. They all play the part, and I'm also going to have an industry-led skills board, which will be obviously separate to what we're doing here, which we're going to be producing reports which will hopefully be very useful as well. But my whole ethos is about engaging with stakeholders. I don't think it should just be down to politicians. It's very important that we engage further. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Matthews.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Chair. These key aims from CIDIF, are they literally going to be transplanted onto the new working paper? And if so, is there any timescale for us to sit down and talk about those aims? Because I see no need to accelerate clean energy.
Thank you for that point. I would probably disagree with you on the clean energy bit, but I'll ask officers to make any comments in response to Councillor Matthews' question.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. Yes, those aims are very helpful in terms of that initial context, but they will need to be reviewed in the context of the industrial strategy, in the context of the recently released infrastructure strategy for the next 10 years, also in relation to feedback from those stakeholders that have just been mentioned and the importance of engaging with them through our business boards and through our economic panels as well. Really, really important that we look at different aspects of the plan with the right partners and the right stakeholders, and then we can reshape if we need to or add to those original aims, but they won't necessarily be transplanted, no, in all honesty. No.
Do I have any other speakers on this report? I think we had a really good debate on it this morning. Thank you very much for the points that you've all made. Hopefully officers have taken those on board and we'll be able to incorporate them into an amended document which will be coming back to us in the autumn, I think is the plan, isn't it? So is everybody content with that way forward? Unless there are any other comments, can I ask for somebody to move the 3 recommendations that are set out as part of the covering paper? Councillor Shreve?
I'm happy to move.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Yeah, Councillor Wright. Thank you very much. And do anybody want to speak any further on those recommendations? If not, I'll move to a vote. All those in favour of the recommendations, please show. Thank you. Can we note that all members eligible to vote supported the recommendations as set out in the report? Thank you very much. That was a very helpful debate. Let's move on then to item 5 on this morning's agenda, the housing pipeline update, and again a report from the interim chief operating officer providing the board with the housing context of Greater Lincolnshire, the housing readiness work completed to date, and the next steps to develop the Greater Lincolnshire Combined County Authority housing strategy. So again, I'll hand over to the interim chief operating officer.
Thank you, Chair. So as members will recall, housing was a key element of the devolution deal and devolution negotiation. And has been an area where officers from all tiers of local government have worked closely together to develop an evidence base to enable us to work more effectively with Homes England. So this paper is intended to bring you an update on that work. It explains the use of funding that was obtained through the devolution deal and sets out the latest position and next steps. So again, I'll invite Carolina Borgstrom to take you through the detail of the report and over to her.
Thank you very much. So as set out in your board paper, the Greater Lincolnshire deal sets out a number of high-level aspirations about right housing, right place, and support the need of the residents. This is a recognition of not duplicating the work, really grand work done by planning and local housing authorities. This is about getting more funding for our area because what's already out there is not giving us the right deal for a region. So in 2024, the MCCA received a small amount of capacity funding as part of the approval. This funding was used on working collaboratively across the 10 local authorities to deliver the first ever housing evidence-based and housing market assessment across the region. It was building on the really collaborative work done by the Strategic Infrastructure Group, which have existed across Greater Lincolnshire since 2016. And it's progressing and providing that evidence that we must have in place to reach the readiness to have a strategic place partnership for Homes England. Document is currently with local authorities for the final data verification. It is based on individual local plan. It is not new data, so it's really important each planning authority agrees what's in that pipeline, and that's the process we're currently going through. Achieving strategic place partnership status with Homes England opens the door to new and enhanced funding for the MCCA. This is intended to tackle strategic key housing sites which align with the MCCA's priorities around economic growth and job growth. There are also immediate opportunities for us now as an MCCA to apply for more revenue funding support from Homes England to assist with the remaining stages to reach that SPPA status, and that includes prioritisation, site feasibility task and drafting the partnership agreement. The MCCA is committed to continue this work in partnership with stakeholders, most importantly our 10 local authorities. So the SPPA, once we achieve that readiness, and it's possibly useful to note, our adjoining mayoral combined authorities such as East Midlands are now in the final stages to finalise their SPP. So it's something Homes England are working side by side with MCCAs. It takes an element of time to get it right and get those partnership agreements in place. Once that is in place, that opens the door for direct funding to the MCCA in that housing space. Again, that does not replace or take away the existing funding routes to Homes England for local authorities. We know we got local authorities that are strategic place partnership with Homes England. That will remain. We got local authorities that have been really successful to bid for the brownfield funding from Homes England. Those routes remain. This is creating additional capacity around housing linked to employment sites and jobs. So the recommendation to the board is to note the progress and the main headlines from this work and support the proposal for the mayoral combined authority to apply to Homes England for further capacity funding to assist with prioritisation, site feasibility task and allocate the resources within the MCA to continue to reach that readiness criteria as quickly as we can. It supports the proposed timescales and resourcing requirements, and also agree that the authority works with Homes England to explore the transition on the housing pipeline data. That really valuable data we have collected, we need to retain and also update, and we asking for permission for to host it at the Homes England nationally hosted system until such date where the authority is ready to hold its own data collection.
Thank you to officers for the update on that and explanation of where we are. Before I open it to members, can I just remind any members of the public who are watching that the reports for items 4, 5 and 6, yes, are available on the Combined County Authority website if members of the public want to have a look at those in more detail. Right, I'll bring in Councillor Matthews first.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. It's one of the most important aspects of Greater Lincolnshire Council, the Mayoral Combined Authority, because we need more houses, there's no doubt about it. My concern, and it's already been mentioned by Councillor Wright, that our partners out there are delaying up to 5 years now. That water authorities are saying they're not going to be able to support any more new houses without that catch up, which is ridiculous and an incredible timescale. How can we put pressure on external bodies like that within this report to get them to pull the finger out, basically? Thank you.
Thank you. Perhaps if we can deal with those, if we bring a few points together and deal with them at the end, that's probably the best idea. And no doubt the Mayor will have a view on how we can move forward with some of these issues. Councillor Waltham.
Well, thank you. Just to extend the point there, I think we've got grid connectivity issues as well. There are sites that had permission 18 months ago, and in our area that, frankly, they've been waiting for access to grid for, a small scheme of 10 houses, and you can't get grid connectivity for 10 houses. That feels like a pretty bad job. And when they do have to buy it, they pay big money for that, which of course impacts on the viability of being able to deliver it anyway. I welcome the report, Chair. I think there's a lot of opportunities here for us to secure extra resources, but there are a number of variables that we have to assess as part of this process. So one of them we just picked up there was the point about sites. There are certain some sites that are harder to deliver than others for all sorts of different reasons, whether it's infrastructure connectivity, the grid, the water that we've just talked about. And some of these are sites that have been in local plans for, you know, a long time, that clearly if we're ever, and the principle of those developments have been embedded in the community. The communities have accepted that they're up for those sites. People in the community want a few more children in the local school or all those sorts of things. That principle, you know, has been well rehearsed. The challenge, I think, in the recommendation, which is I think is something that we have to push, is the fact that it is very much a quantitative approach, not a qualitative approach. You know, we know that we have an older population in Lincolnshire. We've got more and more people living in homes that are not fit for them to live in. And the evidence is if you don't move by the time you're early 70s, you probably won't move. And therefore, you're more likely to fall down the stairs. You're more likely to need access acute care need. You know, those are the sorts of challenges. And more people are living with complex needs and disabilities than they ever have. So I think for me, we have to have a cohort. We have to be very clear as a combined authority that we'll be looking to support that group, as much as the paper sets out the need to stimulate a housing market for a young workforce that we want to keep in our communities, which is important if we're going to keep attracting the types of investment that we are seeking to in the previous paper. So, and I think the paper picks that up really well. And I think the Mayor has championed something which I think we all hold very dear, which is that of veterans, you know, and how we make sure that we make a place often where people have served in this county, or not, frankly, but served their country, that how do we make available the appropriate level of housing? And we're not, you know, the market will always deal with family houses. They always do. That's not a problem. Social housing providers will find a way of meeting social need. Some of that, sometimes I think they could put, you know, local policies to support meeting local need at the most local level, but that's a provision that they need to establish. But I think for me, the recommendations do what we need to do, but I think we could be a bit more qualitative with the policy space there, and that would be older people and those with disabilities, veterans, and supporting policies that support, you know, some of those people in that younger workforce to be able to get homes here. So I'd certainly seek to ask us to add that to the recommendation, not just about numbers, because we shouldn't be pursuing the folly of the government who want to build 1.5 million homes. That's their agenda. Our agenda is to make sure we've got the right type of homes for the people who live in Lincolnshire.
Yes, I mean, for us, it's got to be the right homes in the right places, at the right numbers. Before I bring the Mayor in, can I bring Councillor Wright in, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I think there's some overlapping comments, but I welcome the explanation about establishing the relationship with Homes England, because that will have to be a new relationship to, as I said, to actually access further monies, and it'll be interesting to see what happens from that strategic relationship. Make sure it is fresh money come from Homes England and not replacing the money that we already access quite successfully across various parts of the county already. So it'll be interesting to see how those two work together. With regards to the report, there's a very good list of the housing pipeline that's in there at the moment, but that, you know, that's not a strategy. So I'd like to know whether we will be bringing together all the planning and housing leads across the county to actually turn that into a strategy. Now, there is also problems with that. There's obviously we need an internal strategy, but at the moment we still do not have a land uses strategy nationally. I know government is slowly talking about that now, but talking and putting into action are two different things. And that means, you know, because we need to be looking both within the county, but also as our surrounding areas to make sure our strategies actually fit together. And at the moment, there isn't anything really to shape that. That's why we're forced to accept so many NSIPs and everything else, because there is no strategy for England, never mind anywhere else. And the last one from me, well, no, sorry, two from me. One is that with regards to the veterans, I'll declare an interest in veterans, but yes, to see if it's where appropriate, but also not just the appropriate need, but appropriate location that meets needs. That will be very interesting. And I don't think we mentioned today, the Mayor has mentioned before, a new town. Two issues that. One, the housing task, the new towns and sustainable urban extension task force. Its report is due this month. So I did wonder whether we've missed the boat on that. And also the fact is that those at present, the legislation that's going through will not include the numbers for a new town in housing numbers. So they'll still want the housing targets, and that doesn't include new town at the moment, which is one of the problems with the infrastructure bill that's going forward. And my last bit on that one is that on page 132, 5, it says that the planning infrastructure bill, Mr. Alex Bell, will help inform local housing planning and delivery. Well, it won't. What it will do is help inform how planning committees work according to the government's diktat, and it won't do any delivery at all because, as I said before, we are lobbying because there isn't a single part of the infrastructure bill that actually enforces delivery. All it's doing is providing for land banking for the next 10, 20, 30 years as it stands at present. So I'm not picking fault, but I wouldn't accept 0.5 as it stands on page 132 because that's agreeing with the government when every organisation outside of the government is saying you've got it wrong at the moment.
Thanks, Councillor Wright. All very good points. Can I bring the Mayor in now?
Thank you. Quite a few points here. Firstly, on the first points raised by Councillor Matthews and Councillor Waltham about the utility companies, I agree. I mean, like you said, 10. Just 10 houses, it's ridiculous. So if it's agreed by the committee, I'll happily write to both the Minister and also the utility companies on behalf of the Combined Authority. And I'd go that stage further to actually demand a meeting as well. So definitely valid points. Now, regarding the Councillor Waltham mentioned about the older vulnerable groups, I completely agree. I mean, as the team will know, right from day one, 6 weeks ago, I've been saying about the older vulnerable groups. We need more housing for older people, whatever form that takes, obviously considering any flood risks as well. And so that is certainly going to be part of a focus for myself. The young workforce, we actually seem to be on the same page with a lot of this stuff. Again, our chief exec and I only yesterday was talking about how do we retain talent in Greater Lincolnshire, and so it is about providing the homes. And I do think consecutive governments have let down young people. I mean, how many people are in shared houses now because they can't afford to get on the property ladder? So I'm not a NIMBY. We have got to be pragmatic, but I agree what Councillor Jack said, it's got to be in the right place. Veterans Village. Now, I've been having some quite interesting conversations. It's early stages yet. About having a veterans village, but I would like to see not just one, I'd like to see quite a few across the county if we can get this working. And again, I don't want to use our money on this. To me, I want to be a conduit to get others to invest in this, and that's like the conversations I've been having. Now, regarding Councillor Waltham's point, to add the points he mentioned to the report, I'll happily agree with that. Now, new towns, completely agree. As Councillor Wright said, that it is ridiculous that new towns are not included in the figures. I mean, I've favoured new towns because I've seen from not only being a Lincolnshire County Council but an MP for 9 years that so often houses get built, but the infrastructure is not there, and the issues on the local communities, not only with schools, but infrastructure, even getting a GP appointment. So I've always said I before E, infrastructure before expansion must be the most important thing. So I'll happily write to the Secretary of State to state that, if you want a new town in Lincolnshire, that these have got to be included in the overall, because to me, I don't want to see like 200 here not having the infrastructure, 1,000 there not having the infrastructure. But again, with a new town, obviously the most important thing is a good consultation with the public on this as well. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to those points. I've got 3 more speakers who've indicated. First of all, Councillor Dorian.
Thank you, Chairman. So while I appreciate this is an update on the work programme, my plea is that as you evolve this into a housing strategy, as mentioned by Councillor Wright, that you look at a strand of bringing empty homes back into use, because I think that could solve some housing problems much quicker than the government's plan to build an extra 1.5 million homes. And I think a lot of us felt very aggrieved at that policy, to be honest with you, that they didn't put incentives in place to bring empty homes back into use that so quickly could have resolved many housing crises for our local residents. So that's just a plea for you, Mayor Andrea. Thank you.
I'll just bring the other speakers in first, and then perhaps we can summarise all the points. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just an observation and perhaps a consideration, but Lincolnshire's future housing requirements going on to the Homes England database. Is that a national database? And if it is a national database, then how will our requirements be treated on that database? So a priority housing development requirement in Lincolnshire, how is that going to be treated on the National Homes England database? And will that impact on any potential funding streams, etc.? And my second one, just on the Veterans Village, we, Lincolnshire County Council, in consultation and in agreement with the Mayor's office, we are driving ahead on that initiative. We've spoken with some key stakeholders already, and we will be holding a symposium in the near future where we will be sending out invites to all key stakeholders, districts, NHS, others, so that we have a much more informed understanding of the requirements, so we can develop those requirements and build them into the requirements of the village, and then we can crack on accordingly. But be rest assured that is driving ahead, and we have good momentum on that as well. And we are looking at multiple sites also across Lincolnshire.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, a few things. I think it's ironic that I'm not disputing the validity of what you say about water in North Lincolnshire, but sooner the better, the Anglian Water Strategic Pipeline is going to be taking your water and delivering it down to Essex. Yeah.
Yes, we know that. Yeah.
It would be easier to take it from North Lincolnshire to North East Lincolnshire than to take it to Essex. However, I hope the Mayor is going to join other people, including MPs, on trying to get these blue pipes into the ground so that they're at least not a blight on the countryside right across Lincolnshire. You're right about the water and the electricity and the infrastructure and so on. That needs to move at pace. I disagree with what Councillor Waltham has said, and I don't want to quote you out of context, but you said something like the market will always sort out housing for families. I can take you loads of families in Grantham and across. I beg your pardon?
That's all it is. One at a time, please.
So there are plenty of people who cannot afford to get a house, either buying a house or renting a house. We've got plenty of people on our housing register that are struggling to find houses. And I think it's if it's all it builds, then the market is building the wrong kinds of houses, because we get loads of applications for executive houses of 4 and 5 bedrooms when what people need are starter homes which are affordable, which might mean going back to more modest terraced houses which are easier to heat and so on. You also talked about the folly of the government housing targets, which I'm interested in, but won't go into. You're absolutely right. We need more brownfield sites brought into use. I think particularly of the site that's on the way into Sleaford, if I come from Spalding direction, the loads of derelict buildings. I don't know what they were, and I wonder if they could ever be housing. Maltings, yes. And the Johnson Hospital in Spalding, which has been derelict for more than 20 years. There were plans to turn it into flats. So I think unlocking some of those brownfield sites and redundant buildings would be a great start. And then I've got I can up your 5 years delay. We've got a so-called garden village announced in great triumphancy in 2012, just outside Grantham. Not a single brick has been laid, and that is due to, I think the developer will blame the utilities, the utilities will blame the local authority, and it goes round and round, but nothing gets built, and that's why we've walked into a housing crisis. So yes, any encouragement, and I look forward to seeing how this overlaps with the local plan process, because we are under the cosh with the local plan. In my district, for example, the number of houses we are expected to build has increased from 590 to I think 890, and so every village seems to be in for it. In the Deepings, the number of houses is going to increase by something like 30%. The same in Baston, similar in Grantham, I'm sure across the county. Either we need these houses or we don't. There have got to be better ways to do it, and I certainly hope that this document will find better ways of doing it than inflicting extra houses on every spare corner of every village in Lincolnshire.
Thank you for those comments, and I agree with lots of what you're saying, particularly about housing targets. Before I bring the Mayor in, can I just make a couple of points from my viewpoint, particularly in North East Lincolnshire, but it probably applies to other local authority areas as well. Our housing target has gone up from 203 per annum to 618, and there's no way in North East Lincolnshire that there is actually going to be the demand for a net increase of 618 houses per annum. Be very useful from our viewpoint if we've got neighbouring authorities who are going to be able to build over their target figures, if we were able to share a target with a neighbouring local authority so that we don't end up falling behind on our target numbers. So I think collaboration between authorities might be something that we can usefully look at. And the other point I'd like to emphasise, I can't remember which member it was now, talked about empty homes and bringing those back into use. Whilst we don't have a demand for 618 new homes per annum, we do have between 1,500 and 2,000 empty homes in North East Lincolnshire, depending on how you define an empty home. And it would be very useful if we were able to offset some of our housing target against bringing new empty homes back into use, and that would help us to address the empty homes problems as well. So just a couple of points I'd like to re-emphasise that members have already made. I'll bring the Mayor in now.
Thank you. Look, this is music to my ears, what you're saying. At the recent UK Reef, I spoke with house builders, one of them in your area, who was saying to me about doing up homes, and I completely agree. That is going to be part of my strategy. And again, when I write to the Secretary of State, I think it's a valid point you've got, Councillor Jackson. We need to make sure that we push, and if you can all push as council leaders as well, to the government that these are included in targets. I think we've got to include that. And also, please send me, I mean, your example of like nearly tripling the housing targets, it just seems like the Labour central government, they are wanting to, push these targets out, no strategy, and not always any need. Just because they set the targets doesn't mean they're going to be achieved, do they? So I would like to understand from each of your areas, actually, if it has all been tripled, because again, we've got to push back on this. Let's see, other points. I'm trying to think which other points. No, I think that's covered.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure that certainly our officers from North East Lincolnshire and I guess officers from other local authority areas will be able to supply you with that information. I mean, from our viewpoint, we're in a position now where, because of our increased targets, we can only demonstrate 3.6 years of housing land supply, which means we are now getting speculative development applications for sites where we never wanted to see housing in North East Lincolnshire. So this is leading to further problems as well for us as a local authority.
That's very valid. Councillor Jackson, just on your point regarding the village that never got built, if you've each got examples of this, I mean, you've both mentioned some as well. When I do write collectively to the Secretary of State and the water companies, I think it strengthens it if you've got real life examples where they're letting down and slowing the process. So please do send them to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Leyland, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Chairman, yes. Point I was going to raise is you mentioned housing targets and the inability to actually reach those, and the stress that puts areas under. In East Lindsey, and it will apply to some other areas as well, we have quite a large piece of land. 35% of our district is in flood zone 3, so that completely limits free housing market development. That pushes it inland, where we have all the issues of infrastructure needing to be set up. The strain on large villages and market towns has been evident. And you mentioned, Chair, the issue about speculative developers coming in, pushing at the fact that actually there's now this large target that they know land supply is going to be difficult, so they'll be making that effort, and that will be very damaging. And I think it goes to the point that that's been made earlier, that this document and the way forward needs to be a really integrated understanding from all planning authorities at district and county level to have that strategic understanding of where this lies. Because if it's done piecemeal, we will still be having the same discussion in 10 years' time. It needs to be really integrated, carefully thought through. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to briefly come back on the empty homes, because whilst I agree that we should be bringing them back in, there are enough nationally to almost solve the housing crisis. It would be wrong to not say that actually it's a very complex issue, and that some of us are already dealing with it with empty homes officers, and the rate that we bring them back is horrendously slow. And that's because quite often there could be probate. It can be that people are emotionally tied to a house, because it could be a deceased parent that lived there, and it's complex and massive, the issues of trying to do this. But we also need to be aware there needs to be safeguards as well, because, for instance, we talked about veterans, but I know it's a concern of serving personnel that they have put roots down and then they have to move out of country. If they leave the house empty, that should not come under legislation for any future looking at empty homes. At the moment, that is a bit of a complex issue, and at the moment councils only have punitive powers to increase council tax after 1, 2, 3 years out of proportion, to try to force where there isn't a real reason for those homes to be empty. But whilst it frustrates me that how slowly we actually bring them back in when we can't really see a reason, but then in fact quite often trying to understand the reasons of an owner why they've left it empty, it needs to be really looked into before we just sort of say there's all these empty houses and let's bring them back, you know.
Yes, thank you. I mean, the reasons for homes being empty, as you rightly say, are numerous and complex, and certainly North East Lincolnshire, it's been an issue for the best part of a generation in terms of trying to bring them back into use. Do I have any other speakers? If not, I don't know if the Mayor wants to come back in and sum up on any of the final points, because I just think we need to make sure that we've taken on board all these points, and that between the Mayor and the officers we ensure that they're incorporated into the housing strategy.
No, I mean, I've made lots of notes. I know the team has as well. They're nodding along there. So yeah, we'll take these on board. And back to your point, Councillor Wright, we've obviously got issues as well that there's not enough tradespeople to do up houses. I mean, I don't know if you saw in the industrial strategy, the government's even willing to give visas to get welders into the country. So I've already said I'd like to either set up a trades college or expand the provision in existing colleges. And, this is conversations that I'm having already. It is an important need. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. Recommendation 3 is about the transition of the housing pipeline data to Homes England nationally hosted system at no cost. Is that admin? It's admin that we don't need to worry about and is never going to come and cost us a fortune.
I don't know, perhaps just have some clarification from officers on that one, please.
So the transfer of the data is a pragmatic solution, because the MCCA is not a planning authority or a housing authority. They don't have spatial data software at this point in time. We are getting gifted 10 licenses from Homes England to access to put our data on their database. It's our data, only our officers will access it. And then at the point where we decided how we're going to host it as an MCCA, we can then transfer it back. So it's to give us an interim solution. In other areas of the MCCA, we already got hosting agreements in place to do this in a financial sustainable way with other local authorities, such as payroll system. But in relation to planning and housing data, we didn't have this. So this is an interim solution at no cost. We do need a long-term solution if we want to hold that data, but this gives the team up to a year to consider the options of that. And obviously the long-term solutions needs to come back for appropriate decision making.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. Yeah, it's admin. It's admin. I also wanted to mention the number on page 127, provision of the negotiations should result in provision of £228,000 capacity funding. Is that enough money? Is it too much money? Is it the right amount of money?
Fitters, any comment on that?
The 228,000 was provided in 2024, so that was capacity funding to fund the initial evidence base, and it has been sufficient to do that. It's also funded some interim capacity and officer capacity in the MCCA to offset some of those budget challenges in the ready setup of the authority. Long term, there needs to be more capacity funding in that place, which is why the report sets out the recommendation to apply to Homes England to take some of that burden.
Thank you for that. Right, do we have, sorry, Councillor Waltham, you did indicate.
I just wanted to clarify, Chairman, that we've obviously, I think it's probably recommendation one that best adds the veterans and the older people of disabilities and the younger people, get them all in. One thing I just wanted to make, I think if we just add that to there, I think then it's embedded, because that's where we need the support for, because they are the exceptions and they're the ones that are not being delivered. The point that I made before, well, I think I made 2 points. The first point is that it is a folly, the government's folly of giving everybody a target that is centrally set, carving up the cake and assuming that everybody can meet that need. Seems pretty clear to me that we've got 730 to meet, so we're all in the same boat, and as you say, all that leads to is speculative development and building houses where landowners want them to be built because it suits them, not exactly, without the infrastructure, and frankly not building sustainable communities, which causes the cohesion issues that we know that genuinely exists. So I think that's the point there. The empty homes issue, which I think has got some merit, and I accept it's not easy to do, but I think it was the Cameron government that brought it in, that we got some support for empty homes. We actually got money for that. Maybe that should be our pitch, to say if we had some specific resource to turn around, then that would help, because certainly since that money hasn't existed, even with officers' attention, which has been good, I think we've probably only turned a couple of years, because that resource isn't there anymore to be able to, because it's hard work. You have to do a land registry search, as you say, often they're in probate, often they've got complex landownings attached to them and all sorts of different things. So I think it'd be helpful if we just cited that we would like some more government cash to turn around them. I think that would be helpful. So just to clarify the point, if we can add that to those key groups as priority groups to agenda item 1, and then the point about empty homes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, from our viewpoint, it's not just about the administration side of bringing empty homes back into use. It's the fact that because in North East Lincolnshire we've probably got almost the lowest property values in England, it's actually not really viable for people to invest in relatively poor quality derelict empty homes and bring them back up to a habitable standard, because they're never actually going to get the money back on them because of the low housing value. So I think that's a major issue we have in North East Lincolnshire.
To come back on that point, actually, if we had some money to support people to improve their properties, and that, I think that's the essence of it, not necessarily the management of an officer, but if you could give somebody some money towards it, then it could be a rental property of the future. We've got similar sort of challenges in bits of Scunthorpe, so
it reminds me of the old housing action areas which were in place when I first got involved in local politics back in the 1980s. So maybe it is indeed a long time ago, yes. Anyway, I'll bring the Mayor in to respond to those points.
I agree with those 2 points being added, but I'd like to ask the officers actually, do we have the data anyway, or can we like do some kind of stock take of the amount of empty properties across the whole county? Because that'd be a good starting point before we reach out to government. But I agree, it does need investment because aesthetically it's not always pleasing, is it, these empty homes? It can pull down an area and people don't look after their area when it's been pulled down in that way. So we have got to do these homes up or knock them down and rebuild on them. We have got to finally find a solution with this. So yeah, so if I can ask the officers to look into how we actually stock take, please.
Right, thank you very much. That's really helpful. So have we got enough information now to be able to update the housing strategy based on the debate we've had this morning, taking on board the points that that members have made? Yeah. So on that basis, are members content to approve the 3 recommendations with those minor amendments that are set out? Could I have a proposer and a seconder, please? You propose, the Mayor's proposing, seconded Councillor Waltham. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Can it be noted that all members who are eligible to vote supported the recommendations? Right, moving now on to item 6 on the agenda, the UK Steel Charter. This is a report from the interim Chief Operating Officer bringing the UK Steel Charter to the board for debate and hopefully for approval. Can I just hand over to the interim Chief Operating Officer to introduce the report?
Thank you, Chairman. So the position of British Steel is well known by all board members and has been covered nationally in the press over recent weeks and months. The UK Steel Charter is a step to promote British Steel in decision making and supply chains. It looks to ensure that when the combined authority procures, it puts appropriate processes in place to support British Steel, but also seeks to get the authority to champion British Steel in a wider market. So a relatively short paper, but a really important aspiration for the organisation to put the British Steel and particularly an industry in Scunthorpe right at the front of our agenda to ensure that continued investment is made and that every opportunity is taken to secure the jobs in that industry.
Thank you very much. Before I bring members in, it's just to note that all the 3 upper tier councils across Greater Lincolnshire have already adopted the UK Steel Charter. I can't speak for the district councils, but maybe they'll speak for themselves in due course. But can I bring Councillor Waltham in first and then the Mayor?
I think we were all keen to get our hand up. It was a trigger. So thank you, Chair. Well, I think I defy anybody not to need steel across any of our authorities, whether it's in construction or frankly any other element of the experience we have with rail. For some better experiences than other, this is a challenge, but if we don't have good rail track made in this country, we certainly won't be able to protect and maintain our train network. So I think this is critically important. When I first became a leader, I think it's nearly 9 years ago, I wrote to everybody, and that was the reason why you all signed up, and I know many of the districts did sign up, but it is worth as you say, trying to connect and make sure that everybody has refreshed their commitment. I think not least in the most recent challenges where the government had to step in, I think it is now on everybody's talking point that they realise that the British steel industry is, given the fact Scunthorpe is the only plant that makes steel in this country, I think we have to do our best to protect it. And I do welcome the very early commitment by the Mayor to sign up to this, and better still to encourage other combined authorities to do the same. So I think that's it's really important for people in Scunthorpe, and I know that they will certainly support the commitment today. I think what we are facing going forward, not only is great challenges around how we make, because the market is, whether we agree with it or not, the market is suggesting we need cleaner made steel. We might agree with it or disagree with it, but there is a strong market case for that. But we want that steel made in this country, and I don't always agree with everything that the president of America does. But I can assure you, one thing that I do support is his demand to make sure that we aren't accessing the US market on the basis of steel that's only finished in this country. Steel should be made in this country, not just imported and finished. However many jobs there are in that space, it's still important that we use all of our influence to, so I can genuinely understand why he wants to make sure that the trade deal signed up by the government relates at the betterment of the tariff. Not, I don't like the tariff at all, but that you can understand why he's clearly setting aside product that's made in this country rather than that's just finished in this country. So, I mean, really, just once again to state, I would happily propose this, and once again thank for the Mayor for her actions, swift actions, I'd say, in securing this commitment, and also, you know, and lobbying other combined authorities to do the same.
Yes, I mean, I think it's also very important that we manufacture virgin steel in this country and not just recycle scrap. Anyway, over to the Mayor.
Completely agree with that, Councillor Jackson. Look, Councillor Matthews, Councillor Waltham and I was there at the signing of the charter by the government, and you know, I made that key decision then that it's something as a combined authority that we should do. I just want you to really be rest assured, because every ministerial call and meeting I've had, I've been banging the drum for British Steel, and even so much so that when I met with the people from Step Fusion, I've asked if I can take British Steel management with me to make sure that they're included in conversations and they're a serious player in providing the steel, and I'll continue to do that. And yeah, valid point about speaking to other local authorities, combined authorities as well. We need the whole country to get behind British Steel, don't we?
Any other speakers on this? Councillor Poole.
Yeah, just to say, obviously, I welcome the proposal and the paper, but I think it's important to celebrate really is that it's not, obviously it's in North Lincolnshire, but the product that they produce is the top class quality steel that's produced in the world, and the skill set that we've got within the workforce there is beyond reproach, and the knowledge of how to produce high quality steel that can go into all sorts of industry is unbelievable. And it's not just about rail track, it's wherever you need virgin high quality steel. They simply are at the top of the tree when it comes to quality and producing it. And obviously the destabilisation we're seeing across the world and various conflicts, it's an integral part, I believe, of our defence to ensure that we've got that capability to produce that steel in the United Kingdom, in Great Britain, and to that quality that we may need in the future. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Dorian.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was really impressed to read this agenda item actually, and I wasn't aware of the charter beforehand. So I think Councillor Waltham, you raised a really good point. If district councils have signed up in the past, it might be wise for new council leaders to go back and double check that they have, and either refresh that, make a bit of a splash about it in the local press, and encourage other councils to sign up as well. I'm sure neighbouring councils to the Greater Lincolnshire geographical area would be happy to support that. So I would encourage that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other speakers? I think we're all in full agreement, and there's two recommendations in front of us are that we sign the UK Steel Charter, and that we seek to ensure that other combined authorities in England also sign the UK Steel Charter. And you've already proposed this, Councillor Waltham, the Mayor's seconded. If there are no other speakers, I'll move to a vote. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. That's unanimous, and if we could note that as unanimous agreement to those two recommendations. Thank you very much for that. Right, moving on to item 7 now. Item 8 does contain commercially sensitive information, so I'm going to move on from the chair under item 7 that we move to accept that we exclude the press and public, and in effect stop the live streaming, so that we can consider what's set out in item 8. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. Just before you do that, will that be the end of the meeting for the viewing public?
Yes, it will, yes.
In that case, could I ask in the public session, I don't know that we've got a set of forward plan meetings for this particular board. Do we have dates in the diary, and do we have venues in the diary, and will we always be? This is a lovely building, but are the venues going to rotate around the county?
The intention is that venues will rotate around the county, but we've always got to be at locations where we're able to broadcast or live stream whatever we're doing. So yeah, you can put your bids in for.
Thank you. I'll get in first and invite you all to grant them.
With regard to the dates, I'm not entirely. We have got a full calendar of dates for future meetings as well, which I'm sure will be shared with members and will also be on the website. So I've moved that we exclude press and public. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. I think that was you.